right. Hey guys, welcome back to another Zello World podcast. Today we have a special guest, the Chief Business Development Officer of CARV. CARV is making headwinds as one of the fastest growing modular data layer focused on gaming and AI. And so we got a lot to cover in this episode. Welcome, Paul. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Super excited to be here and be on the podcast. I think this is my first kind of podcast I've done while at CARV. So yeah, very excited to do my first podcast. Yeah, alongside you guys. Excited to jump into it. We were chatting a little bit before this. Pretty drained after Token 2049, as I'm sure everybody in the industry is. But that was a great trip for myself and for CARV. And yeah, just excited to be back. Getting a little bit of rest, but no rest for the wicked in Web3. Got to keep building. A lot of people are anticipating some stuff on CARV. We'll get into that this hour, but yeah, doing well.
So CARV just recently raised a $50 million round. That's a monster round with Animoca, Tribe, Hashkey. My first question, what do you do with that money?
Yeah, let me dissect that a little bit. That number is actually the aggregate that we've raised, right? It's a combination of a couple rounds. So I guess just quickly on our funding history, that'll include our seed round, strategic round, the Series A round, and then the node sale. We compiled all that together to get that 50 million number. No small number, but that Series A round was the one that had Tribe Capital and IOSG lead that. It was a $10 million round at 100 million valuation. And then we did that node sale back in early June. That was about $35 million worth of nodes sold to the community, to private investors, like you mentioned, Animoca, etc. What do we do with that money? Well, we continue building what we're building at CARV, which is, put simply, right, two types of tool sets. On the B2B side, we really want to solve or help solve the user acquisition problem. 75% of game studios are struggling to target their ideal gamer. CARV can showcase, or not showcase, CARV can, no, I guess showcase works there. CARV can showcase users genre-specific based, geolocation based, how they're behaving on chain, etc. We really paint the entire picture of the user to help games target the ones they want. On the B2C side, we're challenging a direct monopoly on data, right? So right now, there's only so many companies that control when and where data is accessed, and most importantly, who's monetizing from it. We want to change that and put the power of ownership in the hands of our users. How does that work? Really briefly. Users aggregate all of their identity on CARV, and then anytime that user data is accessed, they share in that revenue generation. So let's say, for example, we're working with an AI company that wants to train their models off CARV user data. Rather than CARV getting all that money or whatever they pay, that fee, it'll go back to the users whose user data is accessed. So therefore, they're sharing in this revenue generation. It's a direct change compared to what's going on now. And it's something I'm really, really bullish on. So to go back to the original question, what are we doing with that money? We're improving the CARV protocol. We're making upgrades to the CARV Play platform, which is our discovery site. We're investing in community. We just rolled out what we call CARV Guild. Pretty self-explanatory. It's our own kind of a gaming guild there. We're really trying to grow our Web2 gamer base, which is already pretty robust. We want to galvanize a Web2 kind of support base, because although CARV is very Web3 focused, right? Ideas of decentralization, ownership, etc. The gaming niche, which is where we're most prevalent right now, is still so small. There's only so many users. And so what we're really focused on is a gamer-first platform, right? There's a ton of users on CARV who have come to farm the CARV token. I've got no problem with them. I'm happy that they've come, but we want to target people who are excited about gaming first. So yeah, pushing forward CARV is what we're doing with that money. Can go into specifics if there are questions.
There's actually quite a lot of things that you mentioned that I wanted to jump in. But before we jump into that, you talked a bit about how gaming is one of your biggest priorities right now. And I'm curious to hear more about what is your opinion about the gaming sector, especially in crypto, as there have been sort of like two camps of the gaming side. One, which really believed that gaming is the fastest product market fit for crypto. It's easy for incentivization. And another who kind of believed that gaming doesn't really work in the crypto space, and that Web2 should just take all the gaming, and gaming should just stick to making good games without incentive models. What is sort of your opinion to using gaming as one of the first priority on CARV, and how are you guys thinking about the future of gaming for Web3?
Yeah, I would sit in the camp that thinks there is definitely a place for gaming and blockchain tech in gaming. I just don't think any team has cracked the code yet. If we look at, 2021 and many teams that had tokens back then, a lot of them, kind of printed money, but few of them delivered on, actual, fun gameplay experiences for users. I think that is something that happens a lot. I think that is something that is changing, actually. We see a lot of teams that were funded in the past few years finally getting their products either to the market or about to get to the market with playtests. There's many teams I'm very, very bullish on. Like two that come to mind just right off the bat are Fableborn and Infinigods. I think these are two mobile games that are actually really, really fun. So you asked me if I think there's a fit. I definitely think there's a fit. Overall in the space, I think we're in a lot healthier spot right now. I think there's a more emphasis on gameplay, but I also think there's still an emphasis on rewarding players with, monetary gain. I think uh, you just need to reward the right players. There's a lot of farmers and extraction or value extraction users that come around in the Web3 space, almost mercenary like, that just come around for an airdrop or whatever it may be. I think games are aware of this now and are starting to make sure that they're incentivizing good actions and good players, etc. Definitely a place for Web3. Definitely a place for crypto and gaming. I feel like I should be saying it inverse. I think there is a place for gaming in crypto. I think there is a strong. It's still a strong kind of use case for crypto. I think ownership is something that's exciting. I think they just don't like there's just such a negative connotation around Web3, around NFT, around crypto, and there should be. There's a lot of scammers and bad actors, but I think. Uh, Web3 just needs to be a feature and not the entire product, right? You still got to focus on the game. That's easier said than done, but I think there's a lot of teams now here in 2024 and 2025 that are working on that right now. So definitely still think there's a fit for sure.
So CARV is working on a very big problem, which is how do you monetize data for the individual? And you could actually look at the monetization problem, touch a lot of different sectors when it comes to data, which includes information about owning IP, information about socials, and even in the day and age of AI, using data and personal data to train models. Why specifically did CARV decide to go towards gaming as the first priority? And how are you actually thinking about that evolving in the age of AI, where there is a lot of discussions about who gets monetized, where ethically does the monetization sit, and who actually owns this information?
I think I'm not a founder. I came in 2 years ago. I'm like the sixth longest tenured employee. So I didn't decide to start in gaming, but I see why we started in gaming. I think there's a natural fit. I think gaming and gamers specifically are also kind of degen at the same time. I mean, look at World of Warcraft back in the day, right? It was basically, the economy there is something people are trying to replicate now in Web3. And I think especially after CARV came out, or when the CARV team was beginning to roll out our features, Axie was very, very big, right? Gaming was huge. So I think that's kind of the reason why we started in gaming. Axie is still very big. We're on Ronin as well. So quick shout out to Ronin and Axie. Very thankful to be building there. The question about AI as well, I kind of lost you a little bit, but AI is very much all over gaming. We talked a little bit about user data, training AI models, etc. But AI is doing something in gaming, or there are a lot of teams using AI doing very cool things in gaming, whether it be in development or whether it be in gameplay. Let's talk development really quickly. Mike from Today the Game, I'm not sure if he's been on this podcast, but maybe he should be. A lot smarter guy than me. He calls it the democratization of creativity. What he meant by this is that there are indie studios that are now going to be able to put out products that are just as great or even better than AAA studios, mostly because of the use of AI in game development. AI is going to allow teams, indie teams, to put out these products because of the shortcutting they can do around development. They're not going to have the most money as these AAA studios have. But AI can make sure, or not make sure, it can be used to shortcut dev time. It could be used in generative assets, etc. So I think you're going to see a lot of indie teams put out better games than AAA studios in the future. I think this is something we actually saw in 2024 and 2023 with Power World, for example. A lot of these big hits are coming out of the indie space. And then secondly, in experiences. Today, the game is using AI, right, to enhance different gameplay experiences. But there's also a product called Avalon. I got to playtest this game back at GDC. I was fighting a boss battle, and the boss was like, learning based on how I was playing. Like, this stuff is really, really cool. Not entirely sure if that was the question, but the intersection between AI and game dev and gameplay experiences is very, very cool. I think every user, and maybe even in single player games, right, with RPG elements, etc., there's going to be different experiences for the user. No one will have the same gameplay experience. Super exciting. And not too bullish for me as an employee. I might spend all my time playing games again. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah.
Maybe that's the best job that you can ever get, just playing games and testing it out.
Maybe that is the best job, right? And I mean, right now is leading business at CARV is too stressful. Just kidding. It's all going well.
So I'm curious. You mentioned that you weren't the founder of CARV, but you came in 2 years ago as the sixth employee. There's a lot of pressure on CARV raising this 50 million, and a lot of eyes on you guys, especially having big backers. What's it like being the chief business officer of CARV? Like, what does the day-to-day look like? What is the focus look like? And what right now is the best use of your time that you're spending on?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think that it's changed over the past 2 years for me. Let's start with the day-to-day. So like early on, 2 years ago, also in the bear market, nobody really knew who we were. Nobody really knew who I was. Although I've been in the space for about 3 years doing partnerships, I didn't do enough in the Web3 space. It was more like Web 2.5 at my previous job. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody knew who CARV was. So my day-to-day was really in the trenches, building my own personal brand and building CARV's brand back in 2023. Day-to-day would be, business development calls, trying to get ins at these game studios to work with us on, marketing, to work with us on in-game activations, to work with us on our identity solution. That was a majority of my 2023. I think we really broke through with the Wolves DAO Soulbound badges. So, right, the Wolves DAO PFPs are powered by CARV. That happened in July 2023. And I think a lot of people were like, what is this CARV thing? What are they doing? And then we just never looked back from there. Want to shout out Sam, Stefanina, and Peyton of the Wolves DAO. That was honestly one of my most proud things I've done at CARV still as the leading business. But yeah, a little bit now on how that's changed, right? So I'm still doing all the business dev calls. I'm still doing calls with ecosystems to work with them. We've announced like some really cool partnerships last few weeks with Base and with Monad, doing various things in those ecosystems. But you asked me, what's my focus now? I'm very focused on our community. We have an amazing community lead, Jay, who's done a great job. And then Lucas, his counterpart as well. They've done a great job building our community. But I may not be the founder, but I am the face of CARV, for lack of a better term. Everybody knows me. I think my brand and CARV's brand are pretty synonymous. And as the face of CARV, I think it's very important to be in the community building alongside them. Because these are people that are going to be here, that have been here longer than me in some cases, and will be here longer than me maybe in the future as well. I think it's important for a founder, or at least a C-level employee, to be continually in the trenches with their community. So this is on Telegram, this is in private chats, this is in Discord. A lot of my time now is on this, especially as we look forward to a TGE, a potential TGE here in the future. It's important that the community knows what we're doing, why we're doing it, what we're going to be doing, etc. Because I really need to sell them on a vision. Earlier, I mentioned we had a lot of people come in to farm the CARV token. I think it was around, a little over 500,000, maybe just slightly under 1 million real users. I'll emphasize on the word real there. Those are mostly mercenaries, right? People are not going to hold this token after TGE, and they have every right to go get their bread from an airdrop or whatever it may be. I wish them, do that. I would have liked most of them to stay. So what I'm doing now is getting to know these guys as best as I can. We have over 300,000 people in the Discord. Not everyone's active, but thousands of people are active a day. It is my job and on my shoulders to make sure they know what we're building at CARV is real and something they can use in the future. I think the idea of data ownership can almost be cult-like. This is something I've really learned from meme coins as well, right? The best performing meme coins this cycle and in the future will be the cult-like ones. Giga Chad being one of them, PopCap being one of them. These kind of have a Doge, of course, meme-like, cult-like mentalities. I want to apply that same principle to CARV, which is very hard to do because there's nothing really funny about CARV, right? But I think there is something powerful about data ownership. And so that's where my time is focused. And I'm not necessarily stressed, but I am very tired because I'm spending every hour I can in my Discord trying to get to know these guys and want them to hold that token. So that's a little bit about how my role has evolved over time. Less and less partnerships, sales, etc. More and more community and external facing kind of brand development.
Yeah, you mentioned actually three main components of what I consider high leverage marketing that I wanted to actually dive into some of your strategies. The first one was community, 0 to 300,000. That's insane. How did you actually get there, and what are some of the strategies that you're using to empower the community right now that maybe some people who are still in the early tens of thousands or early thousands can learn from to engage the community? And secondly, how are you thinking about doing this in a fashion where, as you said, Carve may take a more serious approach to things, but how are you looking to memify this, or how are you looking to create the strong engagement and this cult-like culture at Carve?
Let's start with question one about empowering community. And then if I forget on question two, remind me what you said. Question one, how are we empowering the community? How do we go from 0 to 300K? We have a Guardian program, right? And so what we've done is empower a select few, I think it's around 100 users in our community to actively build CARV with us. Whether this be curating our Discord, curating our socials, creating content, or even bringing us business development leads, these guys were really instrumental in the past 2 years of helping build CARV. They've brought us some partners. They've made us some content. They've been in the Discord answering tickets. What this does is give them almost a stake in CARV, right? Literally, they do have a financial incentive on that point, but they're not full-time employees. They're almost like volunteers themselves. It gives them skin in the game, is what I would say. More skin in the game than an average community member, and it makes them feel a part of the team. And so we have weekly town halls with these guys where they voice their concerns. We just hang out with them. It's a good way to build community early on, because in the bear market, man, like not just CARV, but nobody was in this space. Like we would, tweet things out, 2 years ago, nobody's interacting with that shit. Sorry. But you know what I meant. But we kept building community. We doubled down on community, hanging out with these guys. And then at one point, you have one big game night, you have one big activation with the game that's really exciting, and boom, everything changes. I remember in July of last year, Grand Saga Unlimited, rest in peace, but those guys are now cooking over at Supervillain Labs now. They had a play test. Everybody in the space was super excited about it. Myself, I was playing with our community at the time. That was something they really liked. If you can get in and do stuff with them and hang out with them, they gravitate towards that stuff. They like that. They feel part of the team. And I remember I was up till 6 a.m. Living out in Asia, because that's when the server was available, playing with these guys. And I think they really liked that. They saw, hey, this isn't some crypto guy. This is actually a gamer too. We want to gravitate toward that. So empowering community, we did that through the Guardian program. It's still a program that's ongoing. It's still taking new applicants. So that is actually something that really helped us build. And these guys almost serve as like marketing agents for you, right? Like they have their own community regions that they kind of run. And yeah, I mean, it's just kind of building exponentially at that point. The next Guardian you get, maybe he brings a friend, etc. And okay, you're talking about one guy, two guy, but this has a butterfly effect. And I think we've seen that at CARV. Guardian program has really helped us get to where we are today. So empowering community. I think number two is, how am I applying what I learned in meme coins to build like a cult-like mentality at CARV? That was the second part of the question. I'm still figuring it out. I think one big thing here that I'm seeing, and maybe it's not just meme coins, but it's also people raising funds now, is VC and communities are betting on founders, right? More and more than they're betting on the product. Product and everything is still important, but they're betting on founders. I had a conversation with a VC who invested in Berachain, and they said a large reason why they invested in Berachain was because of their founder Smokey. Gets the zeitgeist. He gets it. Zeitgeist, right? Like being like he just understands Web3 culture, etc. And I've met Smokey a bunch. This is some guy I admire as a founder. I think what he's done, building a cult-like mentality around Bearchain, is something I want to replicate at CARV. I think there's no secret sauce. You either get it or you don't. And I think I'm someone who gets it. So I'm trying to be that kind of guy at CARV and apply what they've done over there to what we're trying to do here. But still figuring it out. It's something very hard to do. I think people have to like you. And I think I'm someone that can be liked, unless everyone will hate me long term after TG. I don't know. We'll see. That could happen. I'm hoping it doesn't. But honestly, if they hate you, that's more PR, right? So that could work really, really well in my favor.
Yeah, any publicity is good publicity, right?
That's what I've been saying. So yeah, I think just spending more time with the community is so important. And my team, obviously, we've got 2 community guys that are great at that. My team understands it, but I don't think my team is as juiced as I am about it. I think I need to be more juiced. But, and this is a little off topic, that brings me to just kind of a personal problem that I think I have with Web3. And maybe you resonate with this, Daniel, and whoever's listening resonates with it too. As a builder, it's just so draining. In the past 2 years, I spend more time talking to, potential partners and community than I do with my own family. I spend more time building than I do on, stuff I like to do. It's very funny working in gaming. I'm a gamer, but I don't have time to play games anymore. I don't play games. I don't do stuff I enjoy. I'm barely being able to play basketball. That's like kind of my hobby. But it just sucks so much time out of you. And I think that's the one issue I have. But I think CARV, if I can make it, all I want to do is build a product that millions of people use and find worthwhile, right? I don't really care about the money. If I can do that, then all the time would be worth it. But that's my one problem with being a builder is the time commitment. It's very difficult.
That's actually an interesting point, and I want to touch on that in a bit later in the conversation. But I want to dive deeper into your incentivization program. I think you call it your Guardian program. What what was intentional about the Guardian program? How did you incentivize people who weren't part of the team, who weren't employees, but to desire to actually help CARV grow the community? What was the incentivization model, and what was the specifics behind the intention of this incentivization model that worked for you guys?
Yeah, so early on when I was on the team, I had more visibility on this, and now that I have other responsibilities, I'm less there. But the incentive structure back then, and maybe still now, probably still now, was the CARV token, right? You could do certain actions monthly to accumulate points. And at the end of the month, we would tally the points. Based on the points, you would earn a certain amount of CARV. In some cases, you would earn a certain amount of USDT. Now we've also upgraded this. If you do a certain amount of work, you basically become a CM of your region. And then you would be kind of put on not a salary because it's not a lot of pay, but like if there'd be a monthly pay you get for sure. So the incentive structure there was like points-based system, depended on what kind of tasks you would do. And so that was the incentive structure there. We've had guardians that have been on the team longer than I've been on the team, right? So these are guys that have been there for 3 years, or I guess 2.5. No, like 3. I've only been there for 2. They have I owe it to them, right? Like to do well. They've been waiting for 3 years to really see this come to fruition. So yeah, I'm just very thankful that they were there helping us build. And they made my job a lot easier when I came in. Came in 2 years ago, like I said. And like I said, nobody really knew who I was in the space. These guys helped bring me some connections that became long-term partners for us. So very thankful to those guardians. I'll share the link of this podcast with them when it goes live, and I'm sure they'll be happy to hear that shout out. Yeah, there are a couple that come
That's
to mind.
awesome. And were you specific about how much CARV tokens that they would earn, or?
Yeah, well, so it would vary on the points you get a month, but there would be like, let's say you get like 500 points puts you in a different tier, maybe 400 in another, whatever it may be, and then there would be allocated CARV per tier. Yeah, so very specific.
How are you thinking about TGE? Because oftentimes TGE is a big moment for a protocol. It's probably the time where you get the most engagement because there are a lot of people farming the token. But also the fact that sometimes it's very hard to sustain after TGE. And which, in my opinion, I'm curious to hear your opinion too. But guys like Monad or guys like Berachain have been able to really create this cult-like culture without launching a token. And in my opinion, partly the reason is because they haven't launched their token. How do you think about that as an incentive model, and how do you think about sustaining the culture after UTG?
Yeah, look, I think I said it a little bit ago. There are people that have come to farm, and there are people that will leave as soon as they're able to claim what they farmed. I wish them nothing but the best. I mean, that's what they came to do. That's great for them. I think Carve, while we do, and me personally anticipate a drop off in our engagement, etc. after the fact, I think it's just the beginning of the journey. I mentioned earlier, owning your data is something we really want to build upon. And by owning your data, you're almost opting into a passive revenue stream. I hate that word, but that's kind of what it is. As more and more games, as more and more different industries work with CARV, AI, e-commerce, ad tech, whatever it may be, theoretically there should be a more inflow of USDT coming to CARV, and therefore more rewards coming to users. So while the CARV token may not be there to farm, you're actually still seeing a rewards flywheel being created if you're a part of CARV long term. So I think incentive wise, we still have plenty to incentivize new users coming to CARV long term. So anticipating a drop off, but also like there's still so much more on the horizon for us. We haven't even scraped the surface of what we want to build and where we want to go. So how do we keep these users around? I think there's a lot to stay for, but then also it goes back to that cult-like mentality. I think people will hold shit that they believe in. And if they can believe that Carve is almost the David versus Goliath here, right? Carve being David, Goliath being these Web2 centralization companies that control data. Um, if I can paint that picture to the community, then I think there's a reason to hold the Carve token, right? There's obviously going to be different utility on the Carve site, different staking mechanisms that we introduce. Infinite Play is still a big campaign that will be there long term. All of these things will have Carve utility, but I think at the end of the day, it's about what does this token represent? And I want the Carve token to represent data ownership. If I can marry that idea, then I think people will hold this. So we've got a great research team and tokenomics team that are doing amazing things to incentivize holding the Carve token. But I think at the end of the day, it does come down to messaging and vision. So that's how I think I will and we will incentivize people to stay long term. But again, TGE, how am I thinking about TGE? You asked that as well. I mean, I'm excited. I have to be, right? But it's a very choppy market right now. Our community, they're going to listen to this and be like, well, he said TGE Q3 at some point, which is about to be done. I think a lot of projects were affected by, how choppy the market's been. And I think, not I think, I know we're very close to where we want to be and where we want to get, but there's so many factors that impact a potential TGE, and you only get one shot, right? You only get one shot, and so while the community is eager, it's also important to do it right. And I think we have the team in place to do it right. It just comes down to timing, and they'll hear from it, hopefully soon, right? But no comment on the date.
I want to bring it back to Carve and the awesome things that you guys are doing, and your vision actually. You talked about how people can earn passive income through their data. My first question is everybody's data valued the same?
I think, okay, so there's different types of data on Carve, right? So there's user data, like gameplay data, sentiment data, social data. There's a ton of different data, etc. And you basically ask like, how is it valued, right? So right now it's valued almost equally. Let's say I go play, or my user data is accessed. I'm a user from Southeast Asia. I do X on chain. I play hundreds of hours of FPS, whatever it may be. Well, then whatever game is accessing my user data, we call this data to earn. 100% of that fee will go back to the users right now, but it'll be split equally upon the users that meet the criteria. So I guess how is it valued? It's the same between two different people right now, as long as the criteria is met. Maybe how we do this in the future is different. I'm not too sure what that looks like, but right now, data to earn It's 100% equal and it's equitable. Uh, you may ask, like, well, where's CARV's cut, etc. We're less and less focused on making money in the short term, more and more focused on building strong partnerships and building strong community. And I think incentivizing the community via data to earn, 100%, by the way, is important moving forward, or important right now in the short term. In terms of revenue, and this is a little off topic, we're in a very healthy spot. I'm forgetting the latest numbers, but I do know in Q1 there was $4 million of revenue generated on CARV. This was through B2B and B2C sales of the CARV ID and the .play name service. So CARV has made money in the past. CARV will make money in the future. But right now, how we view data is we want to kick back to the users for bringing their user data to CARV. So yeah, it's viewed the exact same right now. But I think it opens up a very interesting question: is what data is important, etc. I guess that would come down to the demand of the customer, right? What data do they want? Do they want how this user's playing the game? Do they want how this user's, behaving on chain? It's really dependent on them. We actually call this identity and data layer. So a little bit on where we're building in the future. We think blockchain tech stacks need to evolve and kind of add this. What I mean by that is right now you've got the wallet. You can see everything in the wallet, etc., but you don't really know how they're behaving. So that's where we come in and build the identity and data layer, pair wallet address with how they're spending, or not how they're spending, how they're playing games, etc., where they're coming from, etc., what they're doing outside of your game, how they're playing other games, where they're doing on socials. So that's a little bit about what we're doing, expanding blockchain tech stacks to identity and data layer, etc.
I'm curious to know how you guys are thinking about on-chain data versus off-chain data. What is more important to you guys at this moment, or at least how are you thinking about what is more important, on-chain data and off-chain data, and how do you blend the two?
Yeah, I think for us right now, since we're very, very focused on gaming, it would be off-chain stuff, right? Especially most of our customers our partners are gaming focused. They want to know how these users are playing games. They care less and less about if this user is buying X token, what they're doing on chain. More and more, this user's playing games. They want real gamers. Off-chain data right now is more valuable in the short term because we can show these game studios, hey, you're building an RPG. Here are thousands of RPG players on CARV. This is how they stack up. These guys play more hours. These guys play less hours. These guys have more achievements. These guys have less achievements. That's more valuable in the short term. On-chain data is still very, very important as well. Maybe a game, has a big collection coming up, and they want to know who on CARV is a whale or who on CARV is holding a CARV node, for example. If they hold a CARV node, this guy invested into a non-liquid asset. They probably are, keen to buy into an ecosystem long term. So that kind of data is still super valuable as well. I think we need to marry the two. It's something we've been doing, but people care about how they're playing games more than how they're spending on chain. At least that may be a little anecdotal, but that's just how we're seeing it right now. Me personally is how I'm seeing it right now.
And for the community and for those who are backing Carve as a long-term business play, where do you think Carve will actually earn the most money in the future? You mentioned that data at this moment point in time, you want to give the full kickback to the data providers, but Carve as a business, where do you guys believe you will earn the most revenue from?
I think it's twofold, but I think in the short term, B2B partnerships, right? Whether it be marketing, whether it be user acquisition, but also like with the banana game, right? So this is something we haven't talked about. This is something that's generating a lot for us right now. We helped that banana game grow to 12 million users on Telegram, and we still handle a lot of their inflow, etc. So what we're doing right now, and what's really popular in the Telegram ecosystem, is basically selling traffic. So a little bit on Banana, it's got day two 40% retention, which is really, really strong. A lot of users are playing this game. What we can now do is go around to other games that are building Telegram games, which is really, really popular, and basically allow them to set up task boards or quest boards within the Banana app, redirecting our users to their game and their communities. This kind of stuff prints, and there's a lot of teams that are doing this. So that's generating a lot of revenue in the short term as well. Long term, I think there's a lot I want to touch on that we haven't really announced publicly that we're going to be building, but I think B2B stuff for sure. There's always still options for, monetizing the CARV platform differently. Like, right, we generated revenue from the CARV ID and the dot play name services and other, in-app features, but yeah, it remains to be seen, remains to be said. I think in the very soon we're gonna unveil a roadmap and go into detail pre TGE about what CARV looks like post TGE. I would say to listeners to look out for that to learn more about how we're going to be generating revenue long term and business growth.
Paul, you said something very interesting, which I wanted to bring up, which was that in a simplistic way, people could say that the way that you serve B2B is you either help them make more money or you help them save money. And from your guys' side, you were able to drive a lot of traffic to different Telegram games. Uh, this generally is quite a powerful capability. How are you guys actually doing that? And uh, what advantage are you deploying to drive more people to other games?
Yeah, so it's just using the Banana app, right? So that has around 7 million, I think, monthly active users. And we're putting, let's say, for example, another game's quest board in there. So it could be like play this game, which I think is very, very valuable. You're actually getting a user to go play that game. Or it's very simply social stuff as well. And what a lot of these games are also doing adjacent to the quest board is integrating our ID solution called CARV ID. So CARV ID now is basically going to allow all of our users in our ecosystem to seamlessly log into the game, right? Without a wallet, without all that jargon, whatever it may be, or is that the right word? Without all that stuff, they can go log in the game, but they're also going to get the data on these users as well. So the CARV ID is the sort of passport for users to aggregate all of their identities in one place. Gaming, uh, on chain, off chain, whatever it may be. So when you log into a game with your CARV ID, if that user has their Steam account indexed there or attached there, you're going to get their Steam data as well. So super, super valuable, not just bringing users to the game in bulk, but bringing high quality users as well. You brought up one thing, either bring more users or lower costs or make more money or lower costs. We really want to focus on cost of acquisition. It's too high right now in traditional gaming. We're trying to bring it down a little bit lower, but also bringing them quality users as well. Maybe the cost of acquisition is a little bit higher with CARV at some points, at some times, depending on a couple key factors, where the users are coming from, how many users maybe, but their quality users is what we're trying to deliver on, right? Really, that these guys are active gamers, they're active spenders, they're from key regions, whatever you want to call it. That's very important as well. So, answered both questions. We can bring them in bulk through various different means. We could bring quality as well. We can lower costs, etc.
Paul, you're originally from the US, but now you live in Bangkok. Why specifically Bangkok?
Yeah, I guess a little bit about my journey. Originally from California, as mentioned, went to USC in LA, lived there, jumped around to Spain to do an MBA, came back to Texas, moved to China last year, now in Bangkok. Um, Moved to China because a lot of the team is Asia based. It's very hard to work cross functionally across different time zones, especially in Web3. Why Bangkok? We moved here because cost of living is just so low. You can really extend, runway, etc. But I also think Web3 gaming, from what I've seen, is really Southeast Asia vibrant. Look at Axie, let's look at YGG, and by looking at Axie, let's look at Ronin. These are users who um, actually play these games. They actually played Axie in 2021. They're still playing Axie now. They're playing whatever Web3 game comes to market. A big reason why this is happening is because cost of living is very, very low here. You can actually cover your bills by playing these, play to earn games, these Web3 games, which is fascinating to me. I think Asia will lead, the Web3 gaming bull run, if you want to call it that. So I think it's very important as a team focusing on gaming to be out here. A lot of teams are not necessarily in Bangkok, but Bangkok's very central. I can fly to Korea in under 6 hours, Japan 6 hours, back to China in 4, go to the Philippines in 2, whatever it may be. All these teams are here. I think Asia is where you want to be if you're serious about Web3 gaming. So Bangkok, probably cost of living. Asia, because I just think Asia will lead Web3 as a whole, will lead crypto. And I think it's something they've been doing now since last cycle. That would be my answer to that. I think my team would concur.
How are you thinking about the go-to-market in Southeast Asia or in Asia in general, when Asia has actually a lot more different languages than if you were functioning out of the States or the UK? How do you think about that go-to-market?
I still think Asia is pretty English friendly, at least Southeast Asia from what I've experienced. The Philippines, Singapore, obviously, Thailand. Haven't yet to go to Vietnam, but I've been in Indonesia. I think a lot of these users are able to speak English, and even if they aren't, I think a lot of these individual games here are doing pretty good with localization to make everything like kind of accommodating for the user. Um, Remind me again. Go to market strategy in Asia. I want to comment less on this and more so on exactly the user acquisition I'm seeing take place. One interesting thing that is I've noticed while living in Asia is the rise, or not the rise, the dominance of mobile gaming in this market. I think what I've noticed being a PC gamer and before that a console gamer, and especially coming from North America, we're very PC console focused. Here, they're actually very mobile focused. Everybody's playing mobile games when they're on the go. When I was living in Shanghai last year, I often took the metro. Here in Bangkok, I just walk everywhere. My house is very close to the office. I'm usually in the office or I'm usually home. I don't go out too much right now. But when I was in Shanghai, everybody was just on their mobile phone in the metro playing a game, whether it be, you know, League of Legends TFT, right, or Riot's TFT, or League of Legends Mobile. I think is also something now too. Whatever it may be, like people are playing mobile games, and I think here in Asia or Southeast Asia, it's even more and more apparent. And that's why I'm really, really bullish on Web3 games that are doing, go to market or building mobile titles. I think that goes back to cost of living, or I guess maybe salaries in Asia aren't as strong as they are in the US. Not everyone is buying the high end PCs. There are some, but not everybody is. But everybody does have a smartphone. And a lot of these smartphones don't require too much. Like, you don't need a high end smartphone to play mobile games, right? So, I'm very, very bullish on teams that are building mobile ports to their games. And I think if you market to that type of gamer, right, that spends a lot of money on mobile games, in-app purchases, whatever, this is stuff that cooks nowadays. And I think um, this is something exchanges are looking at too, in-app purchases now, rather than just pure UAW, etc. We just saw Catizen, right, get Binance recently. This is a team that is printing off IAPs, and I think this is going to be a new trend moving forward. So I think mobile first, which therefore means Southeast Asia first, which goes back to why I'm in Asia. Yeah.
What are your thoughts about the blend between gaming and IP? And how is CARV actually thinking about uh, the new incumbents that are coming in, such as Story Protocol and some of these others that may work together with gaming companies and monetize on IP?
Yeah, I think I'm not too familiar specifically with Story Protocol, so I can't comment too much on what they're building, etc. But I'll have to take a look into that. IP, I think, like people want to play and invest in things they're familiar with, etc. And I think a lot of new Web3 teams are generating IP, but there's also Web3 teams that are bringing pre-existing IP into Web3. Maple Story Universe, for example, is very, very anticipated. And I think a lot of people have already played that via playtest or are getting ready to play that. I think stuff like that will cook. I think there's a lot of teams also doing um, yeah, so you mentioned gaming IP. So they're building gaming IP, but it's also cross medium, right? So they have an adjacent manga or an adjacent, anime they're trying to do, or they have like real merch, right? What Pudgy's done with their IP is super impressive. I think a lot of teams want to do like merch now as well. But there was one thing I wanted to mention. Oh yeah, there's also different games that are using like their IP across different games. So like there may be a PC game, an MMORPG, but they have a Telegram adjacent like clicker game using the same IP. So like I think teams are aware now that um, there needs to be different channels for their IP to reach different users, and they could almost build a Telegram app to like be a UA funnel into their main game, whatever it may be. So I think two things I want to really drive home from the question you asked is I think pre-existing IP cooks, Maple Story Universe being an example of that. And then two, like cross-medium IP is something that every team is working on now. And I think you kind of have to do to reach the users you want to reach.
And what would be your advice for new players who wanted to get into the Web3 gaming space? What is the opportunity that you're seeing right now that they can capture on?
I think simply, bro, like don't be an extractor. Like actually come here to build value. I think the space is still so immature that we're still looking for a team. I think we said this at the beginning of the hour, right? Nobody's really cracked the code yet. So I think if you're looking to come in, be serious about cracking that code. Be serious about building something legitimate. Um, be serious about making something fun for the user. That would be my advice to the game studio. I probably have more advice if I think deeply, but I think the other question is really attractive too to potential new gamers looking to try out Web3 gaming stuff. I think you gotta just get in the trenches and join a community like CARV or there's other good ones too. YGG, Gabby's an investor of ours. They are absolutely killing it in the Philippines and other regions in Southeast Asia. One thing I really appreciate about good Web3 teams and the good Web3 communities is that everyone is so helpful. When a new user joins the community, I see this a lot from our guardians. They're ready to like just take them under their wing and like help them figure everything out on CARV and get started. Something I try to do as well, if I'm hanging out in the community and someone's having some sort of problem or needs some money for gas fee, I just send it. I don't even think twice. I want them to be like, wow, CARV is so welcoming and accommodating. They just sent me money so I could do this thing XYZ. So I think new users should, worry less and less about the connotation and just come find out for yourself. We talked about this. There's such a negative connotation around NFT and Web3 and crypto. Why don't you come find out instead of just being so head in the sand and just, you know, going with that connotation? Come find out what's actually going on. I think that would be, you know, really interesting to see. And I think more users will come check that out. So advice to games studios: be real, be legit, don't try to extract. And then advice to gamers: just like come find out what teams are cooking. There are games that are pouring their hearts and souls into building a fun game. I had a call this morning that really gave me some energy about a team cooking a real-time strategy game. And I was on the call with the founder, and he was talking about how, like, there are days where they don't eat food, right? They're just so focused on building and making it worthwhile. That shit fires me up. And I think, yeah, I want to see those type of guys succeed. So more guys like that, less guys that are just in it to make a buck.
So you're heading back to the States soon. You mentioned that you wanted to diffuse, and I wanted to sort of like wrap up on a final topic for this conversation. I think it's been awesome conversation so far, which is how do you, as a builder, Web3 moves 10x a Web2 space does. How do you sustain over the last 2 years, and what is your advice to people who want to become, Web3 builders?
Got to be a little crazy, right, Daniel,
Yeah,
to really
that's
keep
for
up with
sure.
the speed. I mean, you take a weekend off, and a weekend off, I mean, like, you're not really checking Twitter or Telegram. Maybe you like just want to read a book or on a beach or go out and drink with your friends. Whatever your off is, you want to turn off the switch, and you miss so much. New token dropped, a meme coin 100x, 1000x, a game play test went live, and you missed it. Whatever it may be, it's 24/7, and not only that, 24/7 people need you. They want to build with CARV, they want to build with your product. You can't take a day off. And so you asked me, like, how do you sustain? Man, I don't know how. Like, you've got to find your time for your zen, whatever it may be. For me right now, it's playing basketball. For others, it could be reading. For others, it could be drinking with your friends, whatever it may be, like I said. But it's so hard to find that time. So I think you have to be a little crazy to be in this space. If you're crazy enough to do it, then you're probably going to make it, right? I think how you do anything is how you do everything. And so if you really go 100% in on everything you do, I think you're going to be rewarded in the long term. Post TGE, how your product's received, how your token is doing. That's kind of, you won't know until you get there. So how I've sustained, I don't even know, bro. I might be going a little crazy. I know I'm a little exhausted after token, but look, I used to see TGE as the finish line, right? Launch the token, um, you know, hands off. But really, TGE is just the start of the journey, and I think that's where things get really, really fun. Seeing the chart, seeing people make money off what you've done. Um, I think that's a poor way to phrase that, honestly. But I think TGE is actually just the start of the journey, and it's something I'm really looking forward to. So how am I going to sustain? I think maybe a 2 week long or a 2 year long, I don't know, 2 month long. I need a lot of time vacation on the beach where I'm still, on my Telegram available. But I think, look, a lot of people burn out. I've seen our community burn out too. So I think it's important to take your time when you need it.
I know you mentioned that there's no dates on the TGE, but any dates for you to announce the TGE coming up?
the messaging we've been going with is that you're first going to hear from centralized exchanges, right? On TGE. No comment on dates when we will announce, but we did announce a partnership announcement with Gitcoin a few weeks ago, who did our anti-Sybil measures, and I think that was like kind of an indication where we sit, given the timeline. Unfortunately, bro, can't share too much of what's going on, but I think if I had to deliver a message to listeners in the CARV community about that topic specifically, is that behind me there is teammates of mine that are going really, really hard to make this a really good launch. And look, I think what I said too is uh, the TG is just a start. I've seen tokens launch this past year that are down 90%, even worse in our vertical. I don't want to be that. We may be that. I don't think we will be. I think what we've done up until this point, everything we've shipped, etc., is put us in a lot better position than other projects, right, that have launched maybe prematurely or ahead of us. So I'm not saying we will be one of those projects. I'm saying we are doing everything we can to be a good project. And I think that should instill confidence in our community that is eagerly anticipating a potential TGE. That's what I was trying to say there.
I wanted to leave the stage for some final comments for you, Paul, as we wrap up. So, anything that you'd like to share with the community, or anything that you'd like to talk about as we wrap up?
Shout out to you, Daniel, for having me on. Again, first podcast. It's gone by very quickly. I've had a really, really good time. I've always wanted to do a podcast, so I'm really thankful. Hopefully, I did well enough that more people will invite me on, right? I've done Twitter Spaces, but they kind of vibe a little differently, right? So again, huge shout out to you. I've had a really good time. You're a great host. You've got a knack for this for sure. To the CARV community, I guess anybody listening, kind of what I just said, that the team is working tirelessly to do this correctly, and to do this greatly. Poor use of the word great there, but like I said earlier, it's not about money for me at this point in time. I've been fortunate enough to make a bag or two here and there. My time in Web3, I could walk away from CARV with nothing, and be okay. I want to deliver a consumer product that millions are using to take ownership of their data and to discover games that they love, and for games to discover users that they love. That's what I want to do. That's what gets me up in the morning. That's what gets me here, at my co-working space. That gets me fired up. That's what I go do all these, trips around the world on like no sleep to do. I want to deliver on that promise. And I think today, 2 years into it, ahead of TGE, I'm so stoked about what we've built. I think we've set ourselves up for success, and that we're just going to keep moving toward my dream and our dream collectively at CARV. And I think that should excite people. And yeah, I think you'll see me in the Discord. You'll see me in Twitter. You'll see me everywhere you can find me. But that's the message I want to deliver, is that it's not about money for me. It's really about delivering something you guys will use long term.
Paul, thank you very much. That's a wrap.
Yeah. Daniel, thank you so much as well, bro. Yeah, I guess maybe there'll be some cool outro track as we sign off here. I don't know how it works.
Yes, sir. And for those who want to know more about Paul and CARV, we're going to put some of your links in the description. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.